Today on the podcast, we would like to mourn the passing of a very influential figure whose work was known, I would say, all around the world, across borders, but specifically for remaking Europe in the latter half of the 20th century.
Oh, yeah. Touched lives, countless lives.
Yeah.
And, of course, we are talking about a heartfelt R.I.P. to Sticky Vicky.
That's right.
The most famous stripper in Benidorm, who has transformed Anglo-Spanish relations.
One of Britain's finest exports.
No, she was Spanish.
Really? What?
Yeah, she was Spanish.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, in any case, she certainly, made Britishness her own by entertaining the people of Benidorm by at one time pulling a lit light bulb out of her vagina. Which
the list of things that this woman ejected from her vagina. You know?
Henry Kissinger could never.
No, the list of things that Henry Kissinger ejected from his vagina, much, much shorter.
Yeah.
No, we are also, of course, commemorating the passing of Henry Kissinger.
Pew, 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 pew. Gamer horns, we got him. He's finally been compromised to a permanent end.
Yeah.
Died
Old
at the
age
age of...
finally got him.
Yeah.
Someone found his phylactery or whatever, and finally his lich existence has ended.
Yeah. One of the people who I think is single-handedly responsible for the greatest backsliding of human dignity, democracy, at any kind of quality of life, or even simply just simple comfort for millions of people throughout the world, has finally fucking died.
The thing is, right, he's still racking up numbers. He's still putting points on the board, even post-mortem, because there's still landmines in Cambodia or whatever that are going to kill people, which means that the mob of people currently beating him to death in hell is only going to get larger. It hasn't peaked yet, Yeah.
You can die in Cambodia and your kill cam will just show a grave and you're like, what the fuck? How has this even happened?
I like to think that he is one of the waiters at Sticky Vicky's table of success.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's been a mixed day for
He's
deaths.
picking up the world's slimiest jug.
We've had Henry Kissinger, which rest in piss, obviously. Sticky Vicky, Shane McGowan, and Alistair Darling.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, what a dinner party.
sort of alarming blunt rotation.
Yeah.
Although I think that the observation of where was Liz Truss in Benidorm a few days ago.
Yeah. No, I think we can trace back every human being who's ever died to Liz Truss.
I don't think it's unlikely that Liz Truss is aware of the work of Sticky Vicky.
All right. Enough Trashfuture obits. Let's bring in our guest. We are joined by many-time returning champion, the host of Tech Won't Save Us. It is Paris Marx, here to talk about Elon Musk as part of having done his Elon Musk Unmasked series, looking into the childhood beyond the Emerald Mine, let's say. Paris, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me back. Unfortunately, we're talking about Musk again, but that's it. That's my life. So
happy Kissinger Death Day. First,
thank you. It's a great event to celebrate. So
this is the thing. People on Twitter kind of go like, he won, right? There's nothing to celebrate now that he's dead because he died at the age of 100, surrounded by family, never faced any consequences. But on the other hand, have you no joy in your heart? He's dead. I'm not. Who's the real winner?
But I did notice, as we talk, he died yesterday, and I saw a number of people commenting on Twitter, old Twitter is coming back for a night because everyone's going to be posting about Kissinger. But it still didn't feel like the same. Musk destroyed it so thoroughly that
it was no Trump getting COVID.
No, absolutely not.
So speaking on that question, though, today we are going to be asking the question: does the silent basketball weigh the same as a regular basketball?
Yes.
Why is JP Morgan no longer telling me about their range of investment opportunities anymore? How come it is just Neom and the silent basketball on Twitter?
Well, that's how Henry Kissinger died. He didn't hear the silent basketball coming.
The silent basketball that kills you instantly.
What's
That's
coming out on Disney Plus? I have no idea, but I'm filled with questions about the silent basketball.
Well, it's the series about the silent basketball.
And I think really, the way to answer that question about the silent basketball, and how come we're seeing that instead of all the JP Morgan ads, ultimately
You used to get ads for fucking Patek Philippe on Twitter. You know, this is the luxury watch that you never really own, kind of thing. And instead of that, now it's
anabolic dwarves.
the anabolic dwarves, the silent basketball.
I tell you what, if you gave an anabolic dwarf a silent basketball, they would be a formidable adversary. I'll say that much.
We've worked out a way in the first 10 minutes of this to make the NBA 100 times more entertaining.
Yeah, there's nothing in the rules that says an anabolic dwarf can't play with a silent basketball.
There absolutely is so much in the rules that says that.
What about? Is it just the anabolic part?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. You can't be juicing.
Yeah.
World Anti-Doping Agency, World Anti-Silent Basketball
But then again, being
Agency.
a dwarf is such a disadvantage in basketball. I feel like it kind of cancels out.
I can't show up to the NBA and be like, I'm shit at basketball. Juice me up.
Yeah, they should be to even the playing field.
All right, I want to bring it back.
Equity in basketball. That's what I want.
When I said Henry Kissinger was a lich and I talked about his phylactery, I meant in the D&D lich sense of the thing that holds a lich king's soul. Was not anti-Semitic. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, well, I want to. We're going to bring it back. So coming back though, is I think we can say the silent basketball question is the same really as the why is Elon Musk like that? We're going to find those answers in the same places.
Sure.
But first, I want to do a little bit of news. Because
love news.
There is a
Who's
new...
died now?
Well,
is it about my basketball?
It is not. No, it is rather that the IDF is taken to screening a film of the events of October 7th to select journalists and influencers.
Only the most credulous journalists
and
for
Owen
a long
Jones.
Time. Yeah, there were like two.
This is
people.
very funny.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many followers I need to have before they'll show me the snuff movie. I mean, this is interesting, right? Because
weren't
what
they
they've
showing
done
it
is
publicly in some places as well?
I think they were after a while, but the first wave of it was very, very strictly controlled.
Secret Cinema, the IDF snuff film.
Pretty much, and you saw only the reactions to it. So you'd see like a photo of like a guy in the Knesset like crying, or you'd see a guy tweeting who's like, "Yeah, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life," and like, I'm sure it's very bad. On
Live
the other
footage
hand,
of the Wonka premiere. Yeah.
On the other hand, I open my phone and I see like footage of a bunch of like decomposed babies in incubators in Palestine, and I'm like, okay, one of these gets the treatment of this is too terrible to tell you about, and the other one has to be surrounded by 50 guys with camera phones because they know otherwise you will not believe it. So,
and I think it's notable to say, right, that again the media story around this is that Owen Jones went to go see the film.
Sure.
Was then seen by other journalists other sort of columnists taking notes at the film.
I don't do that. It's an emotional experience rather than a journalistic one.
And was then accused by, I believe, Zach Goldsmith, former mayor candidate for London, say, "Oh, you're taking notes to nitpick and find holes because you are not empathizing because you are," and then heavily implying because you either don't care about people, or you support Hamas, or you're cynical, etc., which has then led, and others have then sort of joined in to say, look,
of course, you can start Owen Jones is a very easy target to start the ball rolling on.
Yeah.
You know,
You
say, oh, he was taking notes in this thing. Everyone else who already hates him hears he was tying on the Hamas headband in the screening.
Indeed.
Owen Jones showing off to all of the other British journalists who can neither read nor write. Okay, look, we get it.
Yeah, I mean, the existence of the snuff movie itself is so weird to me because in that first phase where they were showing it only to people who would be relied upon not to take notes and to only empathize, what they would do, they trauma bonded people. They did the shit that they do in like police academies where they show you a bunch of body cam footage of cops getting shot, right? Where it's like, okay, you're all now a sort of a shared owner of this trauma, like, live with that. And it's like, catastrophically irresponsible apart from anything else.
And frequently, right, what Owen Jones did by going in and taking notes is saying, well, this was very, very bad. I don't endorse anything that happened in here. However, some people are saying some stuff in this movie it's not in this movie.
Yeah.
And then by saying that again, it's like, oh, you're trying to justify Hamas. What actually is happening, of course, is that this is ongoing justification of the collective punishment of Gaza. And by showing it in the way that they have, it means that anyone who disagrees with these people is responded to with an extremely high emotional register.
Yeah.
You can no longer talk about what actually happened.
No, because you can always appeal to this kind of footage that not a lot of people have seen and go, so you don't believe in some of the more like baroque kind of atrocities.
I couldn't even begin to say what was in it. It was so horrible. Therefore, everything is permitted.
Let's just say it involved a harpsichord.
Well,
it's almost like it further kind of justifies that divide that exists between like the media and I would say a lot of the public on the issue as well, right? Because the media can say, oh, I've seen these things that you can't imagine. So this justifies the fact that like in all of our reporting, we're so much more kind of pro-Israel than a lot of the public seems to be in supporting ceasefires and things like that.
It's a weird kind of forfeiting of the public, you know? I mean, I think that Israeli PR has been fucked on this since it happened, more or less. But yeah, I think a lot of people who are very online and who are just like, you know, ordinary members of the public or, God forbid, podcasters are getting this sort of like unvarnished whether you want it or not, combat footage of like, or, you know, atrocity footage of dead kids being pulled out of buildings and so on in Palestine. And the counter to that is this, you know, kind of curated movie that you can't see.
And you know, and beyond that, right? It's when we're talking about the media, we're talking about like papers like the Express, for example, which now ran a headline,
the paper of record,
which ran a headline, right, saying Owen Jones told to seek help over deeply morally repugnant and wrong Hamas claims. Again, the idea that this is the British press is so baffling that it is so dripping in venom that it's willing to declare war on one guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is,
it's always Owen Jones.
Yeah, a guy who already has like had his life directly threatened by people riled up by the newspapers.
I mean, look, I'm sure the footage is horrible, right? I also think that showing it to British tabloid journalists, if you're showing British tabloid journalists footage of a child being murdered, their first instinct will be to hack that child's voicemail. It's not. So forgive me if I don't believe some of the pieties if they're coming from the fucking Express.
Showing British columnists footage of the thing that they are most terrified of. It's like Room Run 101 in the Ministry of Love. You know, they walk in there and it's just a video of the barman at the Chiltern Firehouse saying, "Sorry, mate, you can't have any more Chardonnay. I think you've had enough."
And you know, all of this comes back to, if it being said, well, unless you take the maximalist emotive line on this, saying everything is justified, then you are a Holocaust denier.
Sure.
And again, people are saying that to him, forgetting that these things have meanings.
Yes.
And that's a easily disprovable claim.
Not if you don't want them to. How about that?
It's fine. We can just kind of like fuck a large amount of historical memory and context of the Holocaust in favor of like a kind of a cheap PR win on this one.
Well, speaking of a cheap PR win, shall we move on, of course, to the main topic of today?
Elon, you're going to go out on stage and you're going to make nice with everybody and it's going to go great, right? I am Lindy Yaccarino in this, by the way.
I saw a Motherboard headline today. It was like, Elon Musk gave a totally normal interview. No, he didn't.
He can't hold it together. This is the least holding it together man.
He can't do it.
Yeah. And I mean, once again, you just have to praise, if nothing else, I think the real star of the ongoing Elon Musk Twitter story is Linda Yaccarino. who was, while Elon Musk was telling Bob Iger to go fuck himself, but from the right, essentially, was thinking about, maybe if I hashtag espresso.
And it all happens on X.
Yeah, Bob Iger, the guy who wrote "Take Your Old Records Off the Shelf."
So
Elon's going to get the Iger sanction.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm starting to think that J.P. Morgan doesn't have a wet work team.
Yeah, we expected it, right? And
well, they all retired after doing Maxwell.
We believed that we lived in a more corporate dystopia than we do, which is, you know, forgivable for us because we see a lot of it. And we thought the second Elon goes up against like Google or whatever, they will have him bonesawed. Not so, he's fine. He's still going, and he's riding this all the way down.
He has taken a huge amount of Saudi and big bank money on the basis
and
of
those guys haven't even bone sawed him yet.
He's had the sense not to walk into the Saudi embassy for a shit chat.
So
let's just say you won't walk out forwards.
Yeah.
Because if the myth is destroyed at Twitter, then like Tesla and SpaceX, they all go with it, right? So there's a whole load of other people like invested in him.
Well, hang on though, the inherent value of a company like Tesla, there's no way that could go under, right? I mean, if there's any company on the stock market that's not overvalued.
Well, I heard that when the Cybertruck finally gets released en masse, it's going to make it $1 trillion company.
This is the thing with the Cybertruck, right? There is a number that you can put up, a number of L's before it becomes untenable for Elon. Maybe a very large number, but he's racking them up. And
he's got a Welsh train station number of L's.
So, Ferris, why don't you just fill us in, right, on what happened on November 15th that sort of...
Oh, there's a film, but you can't see it.
That sort of kicked all of this off, and how does that play into the lawsuit that he is, let's say, both experiencing and prosecuting, and how did that culminate in him going to Israel in order to meet Isaac Herzog?
It's a wild series of events, like when you put it like that, obviously I think everyone knows by now that Elon Musk loves to reply to crazy conspiracy theories and spread them himself, like Pizzagate recently on his platform.
That's an old one.
I know.
Yeah, but they're seeing how far they can radicalize him.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a joke.
Is he going to start believing, like, I don't know, is he going to become a free soiler at some point?
Yeah, probably.
But anyway, so he replies to this tweet where this random like Twitter blue check guy, which now means, just a dude who paid $8 or whatever for a blue check.
We have verified that you are a dumbass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was basically saying, I can't remember the exact tweet, but it was something like the ADL or some Jewish groups kind of support a bunch of migrants coming into the United States and they hate Jews and want to eradicate Jews or something like that. And Elon Musk kind of replied and was like, yeah, you totally got it. And this guy also said that he doesn't have any sympathy for Jews who basically support migration or mass migration, because it's these kind of really right-wing conspiracy theories that, the idea is that there are all of these brown people basically coming into the United States that are doing the white genocide, the Great Replacement. Jews are organizing that. And Elon Musk is like, yeah, this makes total sense. We all know that this is happening because he's obsessed with birth rates and he's obsessed with population stuff, and he's
crime
fucking racist.
Because
that too,
he's very
right?
racist.
Yeah. Well, he is also obsessed. He's gotten, I think, the Babylon Bee brain, which is he is obsessed.
And he did it to himself.
Yeah,
he plugged the fire hose of shit into his own brain.
Yeah, and where he basically believes everything liberals don't believe.
Yeah.
Because they are stupid and he is smart, right? It's the simple contrarianism, and so of course he'll endorse the Great Replacement theory because he knows liberals don't like it.
Yeah.
It's just, again, if you get so, and we're gonna come back to this a few times, I think, if you get so sucked in to just that right-wing echo chamber, that extremely a very particular kind of right-wing echo chamber.
Because he was in one before, but it was quite an elite one where it was like, Peter Thiel and his sort of like various like speakers, like Mencius Moldbug or whatever. And you get that kind of like elevated form of racism where you can say all the racist things in private, but it keeps a kind of like lid on it. That's now boiled over into Elon is replying to Cat Turd 2, being like, actually, electric cars are based, but I do agree with you about the Great Replacement.
Yeah. Well, I think we can agree the real Great Replacement will be when the Cybertruck comes out and there's a massive factory recall.
I think, and this what this reminds me of, right? His inability to see that like this isn't common sense to most people.
Yeah.
It's like when Lawrence Fox got himself sued for calling multiple people pedophiles because he believed that pointing out something that he said was racist was as contentless as baselessly calling someone a pedophile.
It's well-worn radicalization stuff. It's just that this is an extremely like high-value target for radicalization.
Indeed.
It's genuinely amazing that Lawrence Fox in Britain was able to fire off the shotgun approach of calling people at random pedophiles and miss 100%. I think that's the first time that's ever happened.
So anyway, sorry, Paris. We'll go back to you, right? He says this thing that, let's say, kicks off an exodus of advertisers, right? Another exodus of advertisers.
Absolutely. A bunch of the major ones that were left, basically, Disney, Warner, Paramount,
Asylum
Apple.
Basketball.
Yeah, totally. But, all of these kind of big companies, even Linda Yaccarino's former employer, Comcast, which owns MSN or NBC Universal, they all exited as a result of this, because at the same time, the following day, there was a story that came out from Media Matters that basically said that all of these companies' ads were being run next to posts that were praising Hitler and praising the Nazis and all this kind of stuff, right? Which is like,
they're on
surprise,
Hindu
surprise.
Twitter.
Yeah. But it's also like, Linda Yaccarino has been going around now for months saying, like, we have all of these tools that are designed to ensure that advertisers are protected, that their content won't appear next to all this like terrible shit that we're letting back on the platform. And it's been clear that is like total bullshit. It's not true. Those tools do not exist. But she'll go out there and say it because I'm sure someone in Twitter is feeding it in her ear.
If I can just say, my favorite Linda Yaccarinoism is at the I'm a huge yak head.
Of course.
I am a yakko.
We know this about you.
I am an absolute yakko. I'm a yakko for Linda. My favorite of her ideas was when she got up in front of an all hands a couple weeks ago and said, "Who's got any ideas for some revenue streams?
Yeah.
Anybody?"
Yeah, a sandwich shop.
It's the Twitter version of the British solution to fixing public services by just finding people from the town.
One guy who makes money for Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter is sort of like a massive like loss maker on ads, but it's all made back by one halal cart.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So all these advertisers pull out.
Shawarma. It all happens on X.
Elon realizes that he's now he's arguing with the ADL. He's being sued. He is suing Media Matters now for their article.
For the crime of making him look bad.
Yeah, indeed. And so what does he do to repair his reputation in the eyes of advertisers?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? What would you, if you were an extremely anti-Semitic man who was being accused of anti-Semitism, do to try and rescue your reputation? You would go to Israel.
You would immediately go to Israel.
Of course. And be like, I like these guys. These are the tough ones. Unlike the woke ones who are like doing Great Replacement.
Yeah, indeed.
Again, this is not like liking Israel. Something anti-Semites do quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So Musk then had a summit with Netanyahu.
Real brain trust there.
A couple of guys who deserve one another.
Yeah.
Agreeing, quote, that Hamas needs
alarmingly bald summit meeting.
that Hamas needs to be eradicated, saying you have to get rid of this poisonous regime exactly as you did in Germany and Japan. Yes, in World War II, said Netanyahu, with Musk replying, "There's no choice," repeating himself, "There's no choice."
Again, kind of shades of the Trump thing where he believes the entire worldview of the last person he spoke to.
Oh, I think absolutely that's the case. And then all of that then culminated at a New York Times DealBook summit where he addressed this issue more directly.
He was also wearing IDF dog tags.
Again, Alice analysis.
He was, listen, I'm very good at noticing things that people wear around their necks. Liz Truss, when she went to the US to kill Henry Kissinger, was also still wearing the day collar. But so when he went to Israel, they gave him a pair of IDF dog tags, and he was like, I will wear these until Gaza is liberated from Hamas.
Or Doge tags.
and so yeah, he's been wearing them since. Just because it's cool.
Yeah, he's an epic army guy now.
Yeah.
They should actually make Musk be in the IDF. I think that is how he can prove that he's not anti-Semitic. I think he should tool up.
We're putting Elon Musk, like, he's riding on top of a Merkava into Gaza City, into Khan Yunis.
He skipped out on like the South African army to go to North America. So now he needs to cosplay a little bit and another apartheid army. So he's wearing his dog tags and stuff.
Yeah. He should drive a Cybertruck into Gaza. It's famously impervious to small arms fire. So
it's very funny to like kind of cherry pick the apartheid military you like based on what one color uniform they wear, and you don't like the SADF because it's like shit brown, so you go for like shit green instead.
And you just don't look good in the shorts.
No.
So the IDF have a very like 50s looking ass uniform. It looks very old fashioned.
Ask me about the Mitznefet helmet covers, which looks like a fucking chef hat.
So after all of this, after all of this, he goes on stage wearing his IDF dog tags at New York Times Dealbook.
Give him a mitzvah.
Basically being asked, hey, all the advertisers, including Bob Iger in the audience, are leaving the platform. And he just says, go fuck yourself, before waving, hey, Bob, saying, if this advertising boycott goes ahead, it's going to kill the company. The whole world will know these advertisers killed the company and will document it in great detail.
Yeah, he said, go fuck yourself. He said GFY, which is epic. And then the interviewer asked him, hey, Linda Yaccarino is here tonight. And you're telling her that...
Got any message for the yak heads?
Yeah, got any
The
message
yakkos?
for the yakkos. And he makes 6 seconds of scrambling noises, which I always appreciate. I do that myself when I'm trying to fill time, where he's like, yeah. And they said, maybe we'll just kill Twitter. Maybe, which, helpfully confirms that was the plan all along, I guess.
And I also like the, again, saying the, responding to the suggestion that, if the advertisers were to pull out because they don't like, obviously, being
the Hitler content.
Yeah, they don't like being advertised next to the Hitler stuff. He says they'll kill the company. He says, let's see how Earth responds to that.
Yeah.
Again, showing, I think, that I think he believes he's been radicalized, as you say, not like a Peter Thiel person. He's now been radicalized like a Facebook commenter.
100%. And the thing is, this is a man who saw a bunch of like Occupy Mars t-shirts a few years ago and still believes deeply in his heart that he's popular. And some things like kind of break the ice on that. When he got booed at that one gig, that made a dent in his psyche that made him even crazier. When he finally internalizes that no one likes him, this will break him. This will like shatter his psyche.
When he loses the home county's dance, slap side of Tesla, fantastic bit of kit.
The guy he's worried about losing is the guy who was on Twitter from day one, has the of like their first name, so they're like at David, right? They were a blue tick. They paid for a blue tick. They've been wearing an Occupy Mars t-shirt since those came out. And they did the soy face when he was a line in Star Trek. And if he loses that guy and he knows he's lost that guy, it's over for him. So the thing he's trying to do is carry that guy with him and make that guy go, yeah, you know what? These Jews, they're onto some great replacement shit.
Now, I think it's really clear that like he struggles with like, he's kind of created this bubble. He was used to like the media praising him all the time. And then I wouldn't say they turned on him, but they started to be a bit more critical. And so he had to find something else that was going to like, praise him all the time. And so his Twitter feed became that. But you can also see that whenever it kind of breaks into his bubble that people actually hate him, like he struggles immensely with that. There was a story
same thing happened with Trump. Trump
totally
used to get that from magazines, then he got it from his own Twitter feed, and it sent him into a really dark place, becoming president.
I think when a lot more sort of the respectable media started to turn on Elon is when he broke their toy. It's when he broke Twitter. They were like, I loved this. I had my little check, and you took it away from me, you fucker.
It was like tweeting #Mutual Monday.
It was like a slow progression, right? Because there was a bit of it with like the Techlash stuff. And then over time, as he got more involved in the Trump stuff and started to become a bit more right wing, like there was a bit more kind of criticism of him, a bit more reporting on, how he treats his workers at Tesla and SpaceX and whatnot, his regulatory evasion and all those sorts of things. But then, of course, when he bought Twitter and, fucked up Twitter, that, essentially turned the media on him in a much broader scale. But there's a story in Breaking Twitter, this new book that came out that I hear is not that great. I haven't actually read it, but the author explained that I think it was after he was booed at the comedy show, he locked himself in a room at Twitter, and the workers were like going to call the police to come do a wellness check on him because they thought he was like harming himself.
Please God, let SFP do a wellness check on Elon Musk and have him come to the door with the fake Gears of War pistol he has.
We've transferred Sheriff Joe to San Francisco.
You've got to send a crack team, SWAT, fucking Ed Sheeran and Prince Harry in there. There's a bloke that needs checking in on.
I am going to need the Bay Area's most trigger happiest cops.
We have Steven Seagal in a surplus Merkava.
Demolishing one wall of the X office.
So he would love that.
Musk.
Yeah, I think
we're
they
doing
get
a
along.
wellness check on Elon Musk. Let's hope he's not got a dog in there.
Yeah. Your Seagal's a little Trumpy.
I would
Well,
say
Seagal is a little
They sent me
Trumpy.
to do a wellness check. Okay, he's having a little cry in his little room. I said, Elon, hello, it's me, Donald. You're gonna let me in? He's not gonna let me in, folks. He's scared. He's scared in there. He doesn't want me back on Twitter. He wishes I was on there. Actually, he would love it if I'd come back. He's crying. He's crying because he misses me, isn't he, folks? Should we check on Elon? Shall I bring him out? Yeah. And he's got like a latex puppet of Elon Musk.
All right, let's bring out the little crybaby.
I just think that it's a really pleasurable turn that Elon's like security team of ex-Navy SEAL psychos, the person that they're having to watch their boss against, the threat to him, is probably now himself.
So I think we can trace all of this oddness into Musk's past, which is something that
he's South African.
Before we detour to the past, though,
Yes,
just
please.
on like the Israel stuff to kind of cap that off, I think I would also note that like in the Deal Book interview, like the clip that went around was, of course, the the go fuck yourself to the advertisers. But he was also like very clearly saying that like all pro-Palestinian protests are pro-Hamas protests, and it's ridiculous that there are Jewish groups that are funding the pro-Hamas protests, and like
How many IDF dog tags did they have?
Yeah, just repeating like all the craziest shit that he's got in trouble about. And
He's been reading some British government press releases.
Yeah. He did go to Israel he says it's not an apology tour. It clearly is. But I would say that this trip was probably in the works before his anti-Semitic tweets, because before that, he had tweeted or said or whatever that he was considering offering Starlink service to humanitarian groups in Gaza because Israel had cut off their internet connections. And then Netanyahu and like the Israeli government freaked out and contacted him about it. And when he was in Israel, he said very clearly that the only way Starlink would be activated in Gaza is if the Israeli government approved it. So that was like in the works already, but I think it was probably the timeline was moved up.
He's sort of tweeting, we'll allow Starlink to do some humanitarian stuff, and Netanyahu's in his reply is like, please give me a call. I know this is not your heart.
Yeah.
I
love you, but I cannot support this.
Yeah.
Give me a doll, rather.
It is sort of it is interesting that what happens when you give this one sort of mercurial sort of suck up access to what has turned out to be controlling what has turned out to be kind of an important thing for geopolitics.
Yeah.
I'm sure nothing will come of that.
Well, I mean, that or like commercial space flight or a bunch of like early electric car infrastructure. Nah, it's fine.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Don't
Anyway,
worry about it.
So
No, I don't.
And speaking of which, just
Private
the
sector's
other
more efficient anyway, so it's all good.
Other bits of the interview that I think actually stood out as well, and this is going to sort of play on some of the stuff that we talk about his history, is he says, I've done more for the environment than any other person on Earth.
I love that line.
Wow.
What the fuck is David Attenborough? Chopped liver?
Yeah, that is very Trumpian, actually.
Yeah,
I've done more for the environment than anyone else. You can ask the president of France. He agrees.
But he would back it up by saying something funny about whales and windmills. He wouldn't
that's
just
true.
like say, "Oh, it's because of the Cybertruck, which is lame and sucks."
The Dutch hate the whales.
Yeah, and also on unions, saying, "I don't like anything which creates a kind of lords and peasants kind of thing. I think unions create negativity in the company. Everyone's
You're
a lord."
billionaire. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're literally a lord, and you have peasants.
His peasants are revolting a bit in
the Nordics.
Yeah, in the Nordics where solidarity strikes are legal. And you know why the Nordics are the only place where solidarity strikes are legal? Because they fucking work. So a solidarity strike is, okay, Tesla workers are on strike. The unionized like garbage collectors won't pick up the garbage. The unionized postal workers won't deliver the mail. Any unionized activity that comes into contact with that strike, it ends as long as the strike goes on. And this absolutely, this works. This kills the boss.
You know what else is very funny?
What
you know
else
what
is very
the
funny?
world's
He's suing the Swedish postal system now as well.
You know what the world's largest consumer of Teslas for the longest time has been?
No.
The Nordics.
He's lost one of those. He's lost the guy whose at is like Sven.
Yeah. He has lost at Sven, who is like
he's lost Sven Göran Eriksson,
who wears a roll neck and square frame glasses.
Yeah, but because at Sven is potentially quite nice depending on what country he's from. Icelandic Sven, it owns like a restaurant that like gives back to the community a bit. Swedish Sven is a fucking psycho. But if he's losing Swedish Sven, then serious problems.
My Cybertruck is stuck in the fjord, and your customer service is doing nothing about it. So my restaurant is going on strike.
You've probably done more open source research than anyone on Elon Musk's personal life, background, etc.
For better or worse,
For better or worse, who isn't being, I'd say, paid by him or someone close to him to write a book. Is that fair to say?
Someone should pay me, yeah.
And so with bearing all of that in mind, this strangeness that I think is well documented by us and others, but especially demonstrated in the events of the last few weeks, and the sort of ongoing crashing of Twitter, let's talk about the history of his life and family, starting with Joshua Norman Haldeman, who was not the inaudible Haldeman. And his beliefs in technocracy.
Yeah. So this is Elon Musk's grandfather. He is from Canada, but of course moved to South Africa. That's why Elon Musk, grew up there, of course, right after apartheid started, I should say. But
got to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah, totally. They're doing some racism over there. I got to check that out. But anyway, so he is this like kind of wild figure. He's a chiropractor, all this kind of stuff. He's during the Great Depression, I believe he like loses his farm or like has quite a bad time and becomes super radicalized as a result of that. So he joins this technocracy movement, which, we know what technocracy is generally, but in North America, there was this specific group called Technocracy Incorporated, which he joined and was a part of, that essentially believed, there should be no government, that everything should be run by experts, by engineers, stuff like that. But it also believed that they should create this thing called the technate, which would be this kind of state that encompassed everything from Northern South America through to Canada. Yeah. And
it's so weird to me to move specifically from 20th century Canada to South Africa. Like, you have apartheid at home.
Not good enough.
It's not
actually.
as good though.
Canada play acts that it's ashamed of its apartheid. It's not proud of it.
I don't know if it was doing that in like not
then. No.
Yeah, but
even more
then,
recently we do that.
He like if he was alive today, Elon Musk's grandfather, he would have said that the Canadian government was too woke, and that's why he was moving to South Africa. Like, I can't remember the exact language, but he was basically saying that like the Canadian government was too soft and stuff like that, and he needed to go somewhere else. But this man, like, I was speaking to Ira Basin, who is a documentary producer at CBC, which is the Canadian public broadcaster, and he was basically telling me that like he wasn't sure if Haldeman really believed in like the specific kind of political program of Technocracy Incorporated. He was just like super anti-government, like super libertarian, and was joining whatever group kind of had some opposition to government stuff, because he later joined what was called the Social Credit Movement in Canada, which was kind of like a quasi-fascist movement that hated the government, that wanted to privatize a bunch of shit, that was like crazy religious, all this kind of stuff. And when he moved to South Africa, one of the crazy stories that I found in reading about him was that Jewish groups in South Africa actually sent letters to Jews who they knew in Canada to be like, should we be worried that this guy is moving here? Because he was interviewed by like basically a neo-Nazi newspaper about how he was moving to Canada, or how he was moving to South Africa, and like what he was into over there. And then like as his life progresses in South Africa, he writes these like crazy anti-Semitic and like super racist like tracts and books and things like that. So this is like the man who, Elon Musk comes from. And the reason why it's significant, because many people would say like, oh, it's his grandfather, you can't blame him for his past. And, he died when Elon Musk was like 3 or 4 years old. But in the biographies that have been written of Elon Musk, it's made very clear that Elon Musk sees his grandfather as a great kind of inspiration. And so you wonder kind of what aspects of his grandfather he's particularly inspired by.
I'd also say, by the way, just another note on Haldeman is he was not, even though he believed in rule by engineers, he was not himself an engineer.
Yeah.
He was
something in common with Elon. Again,
Yeah.
Shocking.
he was a chiropractor.
okay, yeah.
It's so early to be a chiropractor, I feel like, the 1930s. Like, that's really like, it's old school, like Rube Goldberg type chiropracting, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
he was like
piano,
head of the
dropping
Canadian
a piano on you.
Chiropractic Society or something. Like he was up there, like really pushing it.
He was, and of course, Canadian listeners will be unsurprised to know they were from Alberta.
I think it was like Saskatchewan or Manitoba or something. It was out west. It was in the prairies.
Yeah, he was out from out west.
I think he was like between some of the prairie provinces. So I think at one point it was Alberta, and then I think he was in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or something.
Worse than Albertan. Inconsistently Albertan.
Oh, yeah, I go around all the prairies doing adjustments and the like, dropping cows on folks, you know.
No, and specifically, by 1960, he wrote a paper called "The International Conspiracy to Establish a World Dictatorship and the Menace to South Africa." That, and you quote this in your series, Paris, that predicted an outside invasion by hordes of colored people who were the puppets of an international conspiracy, which ended with a list of anti-Semitic
An invasion of hordes of colored people to South Africa. What is this man smoking? This is quite impressive. He seems to have a lot of historical things a little bit backwards.
Yeah, but
well, see also the invasion of a load of Arabs to Israel.
Indeed,
yeah. Where did they come from? We cannot say.
Very sort of let's say parallels.
Yeah.
In specific beliefs.
It rhymes. It's like poetry.
Yeah, indeed. And so we talk about, Elon Musk, as you say, Paris, he sees himself as his grandfather, his maternal
that's
grandfather.
Fucked up also. Are we sure there isn't a kind of like bodies, like time travel situation going on here? I'm going to need to see the portraits side by side.
So this very influential, forceful man, abusive father.
Oh, really? What a surprise.
Lives in, again, very sort of inconsistent stories coming from him and his father about just how much money they had from the emerald mine they own in apartheid South Africa.
To be fair, it is very difficult to prove a meaningful difference between beating your kids and doing chiropractic adjustments on them. Like, we can't necessarily, like, what do chiropractors do other than, like, kick people down the stairs and whatever? Like, I mean, it's pretty close.
Elon knows from getting kicked down the stairs, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So I think the other influence that you cite on his early life is his love of science fiction, specifically Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Foundation. So, Paris, how does his very odd reading of science fiction kind of influence much of his later beliefs?
Yeah, I think people will recognize this from just having kind of seen Elon Musk over the past number of years, but he's a very kind of socially awkward and socially kind of inept dude, right? And that goes way back to his childhood. Like he was not a particularly kind of social person. And so he retreated into computers again, because his family had money and they could afford to buy him computers, his father in particular. But he also retreated into books.
Let's not say that that's a bad thing about.
No, but like at the time when he was growing up, computers would have been a much rarer thing to be around, right? And so, while I don't know, his friends were doing whatever they were doing in South Africa, he was kind of learning coding and all this kind of stuff because he wasn't a very social person. And then beyond that, he was into books and science fiction books in particular. And I spoke to Annalee Newitz, who is a science journalist and science fiction author, and she basically told me that like the kind of science fiction he was into was really this kind of golden age science fiction, written by these, particular white men with particular ideas of how society should be. And he never really, as he grew older and stuff, really branched out into other types of science fiction for the most part, right?
Society, if Elon Musk was into Ian M. Banks and Terry Pratchett instead of Douglas Adams and Isaac Asimov.
Yeah, but so basically, he is reading these books. Some of them are like particularly critical of, the type of society that we would live in now. The fact that there's someone like him that exists that's a billionaire, but he's not pulling those particular things from it. He's kind of pulling the more aesthetic pieces of what this might look like, the fact that people are living in space, all this kind of stuff. But then for me, especially, and I haven't read all these science fiction books, so maybe it's part of the reason this one stands out is because I've read it and I can see
it's a lot like the Jetsons.
yeah. But like, there's also Foundation, and this is one that Elon Musk cites in particular when it comes to SpaceX, and kind of, I guess generally the story of Foundation is like, there's this man called Harry Seldon. He predicts that this empire is going to go through this like really dark period for hundreds or thousands of years or whatever, and he thinks that if like particular actions are taken, the dark period won't be avoided and there will still be like collapse of civilization and stuff, but it won't last as long. And so he's trying to like puppet the galaxy or whatever to ensure that the dark period doesn't last as long as it could. And Elon Musk cites this a lot when he talks about SpaceX and like the need to colonize Mars and all this sort of stuff. Like, he sees himself as someone who is trying to like shape the future of humanity and like figure out what our future should be, because he doesn't really have like these more material concerns that most people are dealing with. And I think it's particularly worrying to have someone like that kind of trying to shape our future, whether or not he's successful at it.
Well, yeah, if you're poor, why are you not getting emeralds out of your mine?
Yeah.
Pretty simple, really. Like, when you need more money, you just go to the mine, you get some of the emeralds out, and you sell them.
He was working on a sort of Minecraft economy.
Yeah. He thinks that like having an emerald mine is like kind of having like a subsistence croft, and whenever you need more money, you just go down into your little emerald mine and you take. You live in an emerald economy. Everyone's got emeralds.
Mm-hmm. So what he does. So basically, this with kind of the almost like fascistic messianism, more or less, born of his various early obsessions with his grandfather, sci-fi, and so on.
Yeah, and I would say don't forget the influence of growing up under apartheid. Like, he would say that that hasn't affected him and that he didn't support it. It's very clear it shapes how he sees the world, especially with the shit he's saying these days.
Indeed. So as you say, right, skips out on the draft, comes to Canada.
I do want to mention the thing, just to do the callback about this. He got horribly bullied at school to the point of getting kicked down the stairs by another kid.
Jerk Vanderklark.
Yeah, and his dad had to like go to the school, I guess, and be like, "Stop kicking my shitty kid down the stairs. That's my job." Listen, only I can fuck up my son's spine by kicking him down the flight of stairs.
His back's never been better.
Yo, did you just realign my son's fucking chakras?
No.
But the good thing about that story is that Elon Musk tells it, and it's written in Ashley Vance's version of the biography and Isaacson's, that, he was kicked down the stairs, he was bullied at school, all this kind of stuff, and his dad didn't care, and, it shows how like evil and terrible his dad is. And then his dad tells the story, and there's a detail that Elon Musk leaves out of the story, and that's that the kid who kicked Elon Musk down the stairs, his father had actually killed himself, had committed suicide. And Elon Musk was making fun of the kid because his dad had committed suicide. And that's why he kicked him down the stairs. It's like, it's probably an important detail to know. Like, is it okay to kick a kid down the stairs? Maybe not. But
he was not simply minding his own business at the top of the staircase.
And this guy fucking Spartan kicks him off the top of that fucking building.
I was just doing math for fun at the top of the staircase. When a big bully comes and just leaps up and 2 foot kicks me down the stairs for being smart and awkward and just like you at
Scotty
Sven.
Too Hottie. Yeah. So standing confidently atop of the stairs going, why did your dad kill himself? Probably because he doesn't have an emerald mine. I think like if he'd had an emerald mine, he probably wouldn't have needed to kill himself. He probably could have paid someone to do it.
And then they go from that to their kind of like apartheid drill of what if there's a sort of like black uprising and we all get killed. Black Danger, that was called. Very healthy society, very normal,
Yeah, I had to kick this guy down the stairs. He is making fun of my father who killed himself because of what he saw in Angola, okay? Look, what he did in 3-2 Battalion was for us.
Look, that kid's dad was in Covert. Yeah.
He was... Yes, he went to jail in Equatorial Guinea, but he was a political prisoner.
Thatcher's son.
So he goes to university and ends up getting an internship at Scotiabank before then joining a company called Zip2, which was essentially a software licensing company.
Co-founded or founded or whatever. Yeah.
But essentially, Elon, as I am given to understand it, kind of mismanaged it more or less into the ground, and it was saved because Compaq
Crazy.
bought it at a huge overvaluation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love a
the
dot-com bubble.
The board gave him the boot first because Elon was the CEO, and he
the
did
first time
have
he's been given
like
the
an
boot.
independent board. Yeah, but it was at a time when he didn't have the power to like control the board, right? Because today, sure, his companies have boards, but they're totally enthralled to whatever he wants.
Well, 'cause they know-
various Yaccarini.
They know that what they're selling is him,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
He's at
Totally.
the board meeting, and it's like fucking like Blofeld's meetings in Spectre, and he's like, great to be here at the board meeting. But why am I sat in the only chair at the top of a staircase? I'm confused. why has the door been left open? Why are you all wearing very big shoes?
I do like the idea that he's got all of the chairs around his conference table. I'm thinking him as Blofeld are at the tops of staircases.
Yeah, you press a button and the chair like tips back and just.
Really like life-defining, yeah.
But so he gets into the business this way, right, Paris? He starts this company, and then it gets purchased.
Yeah,
He has
and
a lot
he
of
goes
money.
to Canada because his mother, because of his grandfather, has Canadian citizenship, so he can get in there a lot easier. Then from
It's
there, he
insanely
uses
hot
that.
mom, yeah.
Yeah. Then from there, he uses that to jump off into the U.S. To go to university there. And yeah, then he starts his companies and starts to build himself up, right?
And I think what is interesting is that very quickly after Zip 2, or sorry, at Zip 2, you can sort of see him start wanting to be the public face of a company. That's all he really wants, is to be a kind of celebrity businessman, but without the juice of Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
And we see then sort of him saying, we want to revolutionize money with X. And that's when he starts getting obsessed with starting a company called X. That will be a payment.
The first X, to be clear.
The first X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you look at Zip 2 and like that era, he was deposed, he was kicked out by the board because he was mismanaging the place, because he was treating employees like shit, which is a story that continues throughout the companies that he continues to found, but ends up getting downplayed as his star continues to rise, right? And the stories that come out of that period, when you go back and look at them, are basically that he wanted to be the face of this company. Even when he was taken down as CEO, he was still asking the board, like, but can I still do interviews and can I still represent the company like in the media? And they're like, no, you can't, Elon. And then they, organized this sale to Compaq, which, by all accounts is incredibly overvalued for what the company actually was. But then in Jimmy Sony's book, The Founders, he spoke to someone who knew Elon in this period as well, who says that you would go into Elon Musk's bedroom and it was basically just stacked with books about business leaders, like people like Richard Branson, because he was trying to learn like what they did to build up their personas, right? Because he wanted to emulate it and he wanted the media to start paying attention to him. And after Zip 2, when he has this kind of influx of cash, the millions of dollars he gets from that sale, he really does start to try to cultivate this, right? CNN notably covers the delivery of his McLaren F1, which he spent a ton of money on and then totaled the following year with no insurance.
Is this the one where he totaled it with Peter Thiel?
That's right, yeah. Peter Thiel was like, what can this do? And Elon Musk said something like, let me show you, and then like hit the gas and flip the car over.
Following in the footsteps of Rowan Atkinson there, weirdly. Another man who's totaled a McLaren F1. To be fair, the McLaren F1, one of the most totalable cars in existence. It's like, what if you gave people what is essentially an F1 car with no traction control and allowed rich idiots to drive it on the road? Turns out not good results.
Maybe it's like a secret McLaren, secret communist organization.
Yeah,
along
maybe.
with every helicopter manufacturer.
It's possible.
That's right.
Yeah, Bell Helicopter actually only wanted to prosecute the war in Vietnam so they could stop it. But we get to the celebrity businessman era, which essentially is coterminous with him in being at PayPal. That's when then this first starts getting successful, and you can see him trying to build a persona for himself. Right? It's also where he starts building the reputation that gets him mentioned in like the Iron Man movies, which I'm sure he was very pleased about. And it's
He
also
got a cameo in one.
Indeed.
Yeah, the second one.
And I want to talk about how
Donald Trump has to settle for Home Alone too. Again, weird parallels.
Yeah.
And
I wanna-
to be clear about like the X stuff, when he's starting that company, like he starts it, and then Peter Thiel and Max Levchin start Confinity, which is a separate company that creates PayPal, right? And Elon Musk's thing is he's going to revolutionize the financial sector. He's going to break the Dodd-Frank rules and bring like investment banking and retail banking together, like all this kind of stuff. And his vision does not work out, but they have the same investor, Sequoia, which is invested in both X and Confinity and basically forces them to merge. And over time, Elon Musk's product gets sidelined. And again, he gets ousted as CEO because he's fucking up the company and he's making terrible decisions and he treats people like crap. And Peter Thiel comes back in and PayPal becomes central. He organizes the sale. And then, Elon Musk again gets a big payout because he had a big chunk of the company from starting X. And then he uses that money to start investing in SpaceX and Tesla and really kind of ratcheting up that reputation, right?
He keeps failing upwards.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
He did one successful thing once, which is founded a software company at the beginning of the dot-com bubble.
Yep.
Not even a good one.
Yeah.
All he did was start the right kind of company at roughly the right
Yeah,
time.
it's like us with this podcast. The ripples, we haven't felt all of them yet.
It's even when Tesla and SpaceX are failing, like the government steps in to help him then, right? Because he's built up so much of this reputation. Like under the Obama administration, Tesla gets a massive loan in 2010 to kind of save it from what's going on in that period and how much they're fucking up the Model S kind of process of designing that. And then SpaceX as well is basically going to crash, but then it gets all these kind of public contracts so that it can sustain itself, right?
I want to talk about that fandom because that really comes back around to what we were talking about initially, right? Which is that the fandom is the thing that protects the businesses. And by getting people to vie for his attention,
The ablative heat shield of @Sven's.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that people vie for his attention because @Sven, right, or @David, right, this class of person requires a positive vision of the future that they can easily imagine, and other sort of various
Occupy Mars.
but a lot of middle class sensible people, they're very troubled about global warming, for example.
Sure.
They don't want to give up the car, and they don't really want a train being built.
Well, and they also need a car that they can talk about with other dads and agree that it's a fantastic piece of kit.
This is a major part of it. Have you read the Oatmeals comic about how he owns a Tesla? That's a foundational document of the Elon Musk mythos.
The Oatmeal, that really takes me back.
Yeah. Well, the guy Matthew Inman, did a long comic about how cool the Tesla he owns is, and about how it's like a spaceship that you can drive. And that was the guy. That's the guy. That's the American Sven. It's a guy who did a web comic at the right time in the same way that Elon Musk did a .com company at the right time, or God willing, we did a podcast at the right time.
The whole, what we see again and again, right, is that Elon is also one of a very small number of people who is publicly and loudly talking about the future.
Yeah.
And he's articulating for these people a positive vision of the future because it allows all of the sort of processes that we know are negative, let's say, that they like, or that they're comfortable with to continue.
Yeah.
But
I mean, previously, if you wanted a futurist, your options were like Ray Kurzweil, right? And Ray Kurzweil sort of was in this position where he was quite corporate, and also he did the thing that Elon then did of getting discredited a bunch of times by being like, we're going to go to space and colonize Mars by 2010. And then 2010 rolls around, and you say 2015, and so on and so on and so on.
When Elon, like the Jehovah's Witnesses of futurism.
Exactly. But when Elon does that, he is able to sell it better because he's better at doing that,
But I think really the reason that he has this fandom that people vie for his attention is that for a long time he managed to get himself associated with a positive vision of the future for people who like being upper class, but who consider themselves nice.
Drive the car that's a spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, of course, also it's this sort of like epic bacon type stuff where he just comes out and he just says stuff that appeals to very middle brow.
That's
people.
more recent. That's more, and the reason
but I think it goes back quite a long way. I can remember, wasn't it like kind of 2015, 2016 when he kept going on about how we all live in a simulation or whatever, which was a classic mid-brow opinion of just like, I haven't heard of Karl Popper. Elon Musk says we live in a simulation. We must.
Yeah, the Tesla model numbers going like S3XY as well. Because it was epic.
But if you go back as well, much earlier, like Musk became the liberal darling, right? Because he was making the electric cars and the sexy electric cars, to be clear, because, before the kind of green car was the Prius, right? And it worked well and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't sexy. It wasn't fast. It was more of like utility, right? It was more utilitarian. But then Musk comes around and this is something Edward Niedermeyer describes really well. He basically designs a car for the tech class, right? Because there are all these cars designed to appeal to certain groups of people in society. And Elon Musk designs the one for tech right as tech is ascendant. And also has
designed a car for a snarky sysadmin. Basically.
Yeah.
He designed a car for a guy at a company who will roll his eyes and call you a noob.
Oh yeah.
But he does this, and not only is he appealing to like tech people, and he already has this kind of reputation around him, but it also plays into democratic political priorities right as Barack Obama is coming into power, and they're trying to push electric cars and all this kind of stuff as the neoliberal means of addressing climate change without really addressing climate change. And so he kind of gets taken as the figure who is going to like save the world, but also then he's paired with kind of the rockets, and he's going to send us to Mars, and he's thinking about this kind of great future at a time when we're coming out of this recession, when so many people are like struggling and can't find good jobs and blah blah blah. And Elon Musk is saying, well, the future is going to be amazing. Put your faith in me in the tech industry and all this kind of stuff. Like you can see how people kind of buy into the con, right? And how he ends up benefiting from it. And then once they buy into it, there's a lot of people who actually put money into Musk, whether it's buying the cars or whether it's actually investing in the companies, so that then you have a financial interest in seeing this man's star continue to rise as well. And that benefited him immensely.
Truly, Elon Musk's aesthetic journey has been from 1337 to 1488. I think that's something we can say with confidence.
I want to sort of end on a question, which is
how many more times do we have to push this man down the stairs?
Which is, how do you see
with how he's looking right now? I think a few more pushes should be good enough.
How do you see the kind of the conflict in Musk's priorities between the showman who needs to be well liked and wants to be a famous businessman more than anything, the guy who was like, I don't care if you fire me, let me keep doing interviews for the company, and the reactionary nerd who can't stop talking about racial IQ tests and is in his mind always being kicked down the stairs in apartheid South Africa. Like, how do you square those two things? Because those two personas used to be sitting tidily together, each doing their own thing.
We live in a simulation. The real Elon is still on the staircase.
Yeah, it's
I dream of a future without stairs. No, everyone will go for in lifts. There will be no, and then like other nerds who've been kicked down the stairs with like they've got like a big comic lump on their head. They're like, yeah, that's what I want.
But now, right, they are threatening one another.
What is
basically
a rocket if not a big lift?
Right? These two sides of him are threatening one another.
But I think this right-wing reactionary side was for a long time downplayed, right? Because I think that kind of emerges when, liberals basically start to turn on him, right? When the media starts to report more critically on him, and he needs to find some other means of kind of filling the void of narcissism that exists within himself, right? He needs these people who are going to praise him constantly. And, he finds that in Twitter, yes, but as kind of the Democrats and as people, not on the left, but as, kind of centrists and liberals start to criticize him more and more, he needs to find that group of people who are still going to praise him incessantly. And he finds that not just in his cult, of course, but also in the right, where people are more than happy to embrace him, more than happy to praise him and hold him up, as long as he's going to support, their political positions, their political candidates. And I think that he also had this kind of, if you go back to the early 2010s, he's still talking about this population shit. He's just not being so like directly racist about it, even though the subtext of racism is there, right? It's not kind of defining him in the way that it is today. And so I think it also kind of like it unleashed him in a sense, but he also needed that to fill the void within himself. And so, yes, he wants to be the celebrity. Yes, he wants to be well liked, but as long as he can surround himself with this kind of bubble of people who love him, he doesn't see, I think, to a certain degree, that he's really turning off like many more people than he realizes, and is threatening himself and his companies in ways he doesn't realize.
I think it also comes back to the fact, as you say, that his model of existing is to be surrounded by people that constantly boost him and then boost him to others. The line in the interview that actually really stuck out to me was when he talked about, well, fuck you, Disney. You're boycotting us. Everyone's going to hate you. And by the way, everyone's turning away from you anyway.
Yeah.
Because because it is in his interest to believe that like Disney went woke and is now going broke. And so therefore we don't want their advertising dollars anyway, because that's the direction that blast off is taking. The problem is again, I have no problem saying fuck you to Disney. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, come on. Are you an anti-Semite or do you hate Disney? Pick one.
Right? That's no problem. But it just from the pure business logic of it, right? He's aligning with the financial interests of like Matt and Mercedes Schlapp, who made the Disney documentary that we watched with Mike and Jesse, right, many moons ago. Right? That is the new audience, and they don't have the kind of money that Dave has. You know,
it's all Elon.
Those guys, they have enough to fund the Schlapps to make a documentary. They don't have the combined spending power of all of @Dave, @Sven, and their equivalents around the world. They don't have the combined investing power of companies that are of people who buy into the story and are interested in working with him.
Doing remedial unionism on the sort of like upper class tech guys to be like, there's only one Elon Musk and there's a lot of you. Showing them the illustration of the like many little fish coming together to like chase away the big fish.
The many big-ish fish.
Yeah. we are many. Elon is one.
We are comparatively many.
Yeah, we are in this situation a number.
Yeah, German guy who's like @Dorian on Twitter, who's like, oh, warum mein neue Mercedes schlaps?
Ja, das Mercedes schlappt mir sehr gut.
So I think that's a good enough. I think that's a good enough place to leave it for today. But Paris, if people want to hear more about Elon Musk Unmasked, where can they go to hear not just the summaries of the quotes that you provided us, but the quotes themselves?
Anywhere they listen to this, I'm sure. On whatever podcast platform, find Tech Won't Save Us, and scroll back to October, and you'll find the series there.
Yeah, get onto Truth Social and follow Tech Won't Save Us on
Get
there.
on Truth
That's my
Social
top platform these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. Comcast is advertising.
Yeah.
The silent basketball, they're gone. They're on Twitter now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paris, thank you very much for coming on today. Do check out Tech Won't Save Us. And also, don't forget, this is a free episode, but there are paid ones.
There are.
There are paid ones, and you can listen to them by going on Patreon and paying $5 a month.
First 100 signups this month get a free silent basketball.
Legally, you cannot pronounce it.
So silent, you may not even be able to find it.
Silent, invisible, and weightless basketball.
The basketball is not detectable by conventional means.
No, that's right.
The Emperor's New Hoops.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so do check that out. And of
He's
course,
got some cunty earrings.
Yeah, that's right.
All of the usual links, of course, as well in the description. And otherwise, we will see you in a couple of days on the bonus episode. Also, for Left on Redheads, yes, the second $10 Left on Red is late this month. That's because I had a bad tummy. It's coming soon.
We are sorry.
Yes.
Riley does not normally spend this much time shitting.
That's right.
Just
from
most
left
of this
on
much
red
time.
to bereft of bread, the Riley Quinn story. Also, me, tour dates, January 26th, Rotterdam, and 27th, Amsterdam. Those tickets are on sale. Amsterdam in particular is kind of a small venue, so do get on that early and often. Also, Australia in March and April. Those tickets aren't officially on sale yet, but keep an eye out.
The Dams tour.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you.